type of arrival rate. So what we do is changing this to go time variant arrival rate. It will ask you what type of rate table you are referring to. Since we only have one defined it, then we're going to be referring to that. Make sense? So I'm changing this from inter-arrival time to a time variant arrival rate. Okay? And we will talk about other applications on event. Only on certain event you have arrival. Arrival table is like an appointment arrival. Usually in the clinical setting, you could have 9 o'clock appointment, 9:30, 9:20, and 9:45, and 10:15. So you just have to type in the time of the arrival, appointment arrival during your simulation. It will be fine. Question for me? I'm sure you're going to come to you later on this week for your homework. Also, let me see what else we're talking about. Question 7 is rate table. So in our case, we have in our homework portion, what we have is actually you have a 2 arrival table, one for the regular arrival, consumer arrival, one for the business arrival. And since you have 2 sources, and each one of the sources can referring to a retail or wholesale arrival, order arrival part. And the next things we're dealing with is the staff level as well. Let me check. Problem, is that problem 8? Yes. Problem A. Problem A is the work schedule. Okay. So you have a different work schedule for a different workstation or resources. Okay. So what we can have for this portion, either for the server, we have 3 bed, and or for the regular resource of the doctor. So I'm going to show both how to do that. Okay. First, you go into your data section, click on the work schedule tab. Okay. First, you're going to look for a create a new day pattern. For the doctors, there's a so we call it doc day pattern. Okay. And also, I'm going to show a Zoom day pattern. Once I've done that, you see there's a expandable tab right here. So you can start including from, for example, from 12 a.m. all the way for 8 hours to 8 a.m. I have value of 1. Okay. Then from 8 a.m. and then for the next 4 hours, I have a scheduled 2 doctor. And from 12 p.m. for another 8 hours, and I have 3 doctors. And for 8 p.m. and we have 4 hours, we're coming down to 2 doctors. Everybody see this? So I'm assigning for the doctor physician has a full 24 hours pattern from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. 8-hour period. I only have one. And I have from a.m. to 12 p.m. I have two. From 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. I have three on staff. From 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. next morning, I have two doctors. And here we're going to have doctor's work schedule. Okay, and the doctor's work schedule starting from today's day, and I can have 7 days, so I can fill in which day pattern I have. So one doctor over maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday has one pattern. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday have another pattern. So here what we're going to do is they all have the same pattern for the week. Or instead, you just say they're the same every day. You just say, I only have 1 day pattern available. You could have a once daily pattern for weekday and have different ones for weekend. Next, we're going to do the room pattern, for example. Okay. Many times the hospital's bed capacity varies because they cannot staff some of the bed, so they don't have enough nurses on staff to run the bed. So here what we have is just 12 a.m., for example, to for 8 hours. Again, I have one bed for 8 a.m. For another 8 hours, I have 3 beds. And from 4 p.m. to another 8 hours, I have 2 beds. Everybody okay? So here I have room schedule. Okay. And also is only 1 day pattern for entire simulation process. I have a room patterns over here. All right. So first you define the day patterns, then you define a new work schedule pattern referring to these day pattern. So once we finish the definition, how we're going to use that in the simulation, what we do is we get on the doctors and click on the doctor's object. Instead of saying the capacity type is fixed, what we have is the capacity type is follow work schedule. And which work schedule? It is doctor's work schedule. Everybody okay? Same thing. For the bed, instead of a fixed F of 3, I say is following work schedule of room schedule. Questions? Anybody already up to this far? All right. Let me see if we have anything. This is for problem 8, I believe. Yeah, it is for problem 8. Yes, staffing. So they give you a day pattern to follow. Same thing. Problem 8 asks for 10 replication, 12 hours. Asks you have to report 95% confidence interval. All right, let me see. Problem 6. Problem 6. quickly go over. What's going on? Problem 6. This is problem 6. The solution I have is one way to solve the problem, not the entire way. Okay, so what we have is for each one of the warehouse, assembly, or production for different type of arrival, a different type of order, they have a different processing time, isn't it? Let me see what it looks like. Yeah, pretty much like this. We have on the homework assignment. So consumer has in a warehouse or assembly or production, they all have a different processing time. How I'm going to do this, basically, I'm just creating a data table, okay? Each one of the column are time column, okay? So we adding property basically is expression column, okay? They are expression column and expression, and make sure you set their unit type is time and unit default units minutes, and then you can type in the processing time as a random.per for. So I have one column entirely for warehouse, one column entirely for assembly, one column entirely for production. All right. Question is how I'm going to reference them in the server block. The server block says I'm going to any one of the server, for example, warehouse. What we do, I'm going to let you see the whole thing. So I'm going to call the table times, which is this table's name, and using model entity customer type. I have a customer type. 1 represents retail, 2 represents small business, and 3 represent large business. So here I have assignment of using so-called random discrete, assign them for 2 or 3. So 75% of a chance on the wholesale arrival belongs to the small business. Another 25% represent the large business. Okay, so have 2 or 3 from this source, 1 always from this source. So here I assign them to, customer type equals to 1 always. So among between these two sources, the arrival entity has a customer type of 1, 2, 3. So in each one of the server, just say index in the customer table using the customer type model entity customer type to determine which row you are, and then dot warehouse service time. So I'm referring to which column it is. Okay, assembly is the same thing. Table times model entity customer type, but I'm using the assembly service time. For the production, and I'm using table times. Table time is just a table, I called it that name. And I define a model entity state variable called an entity state variable customer type, and using the column of production service. So I will be able to access various of processing time for various of server from. So each server has a different column, but the indexes in that column represent the rows. Okay, question? Yes, you can do that too. You can go do that too. I'm just showing you a slightly different way to do it. We've done the other way in example lecture 3 example, but this is also another way to do it. So whichever way you do it is fine. question? All right. Also, some of you asked in problem 5 how I'm going to redirect the product into 3 different sinks so I can collect statistics. Remember, we asked you to do is also in lecture 5 and lecture 3, we did this. I click on this no. The no over here represents how I'm going to let this coming down. First, what I do is I'm using the customer type and designate it as the weight of the link. Okay, weight of the link. For example, this link is going to retail. I say if customer model entity customer type equals to 1, and if customer type equals to 2, if the model entity customer type equals to 3. So these are the 3 mutually exclusive conditions. If the customer type equals to 1 for that entity coming over, and this will return, this logical expression going to return a 1, and the other two, the weight on the other two will return 0. So 100% they're going to go this way. Okay. If the customer type equals to 2, which is a small business coming through this way, only this particular logical expression will return truth, which is 1. The other two will return false, will return 0. And that means 100% of the chance they're going to go that way. And just make sure this thing's going, instead of a shortest path, is going by link weight. Make sure you do that, okay? Any other question? So I basically answered a question you have for majority of problem 5, 6, 7, and 8, not in the sequence you have been asked, but I covered it already. Question for me? All right. We're already over half hour mark. I want to keep this short and sweet, and I want to make you worthwhile to come to class today, and I really appreciate you can join our class. Hope save you 10, 20 hours on your homework because you join us today. If no more questions, I'm going to